a lot of this isn't how interesting is your photos. It's how good are you at talking to people and negotiating stuff, which that's something I never learned or not learned in any official capacity, and just kind of had to figure it out as I go, which is, it can be difficult.
Yes. It's horrible to learn that, because as an artist, we spend so much time saturated in the act of creation and the art form. And then anything outside of that is almost a burden, because we're like, I just want to be doing my drug. I want this drug. And,
Yes.
and I don't want to be hindered by these other things. Oh man, it is. I'm really excited to talk with you. You are quintessentially one of my all-time favorite photographers. This is one time
Appreciate
when your photography is out of control. If you're listening to this and you've not seen Camden's work, I highly suggest checking it out, because he has this. We're going to get into it, but he has this way of being in the right place at the right time, but also have an artistic eye. All these things kind of come together, and you can kind of. There's a voice with his work that I really love and I admire. And so definitely check it out before you hear us talk about this, so you have context. This is one of the rare situations where the algorithm from social media actually gave me something special, and it was your work. And so, yeah, this was like a year ago or so. So it's really great to have you here. You're really busy. And so I appreciate you taking the time to make this happen.
No, I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, I know that you are often on the road and traveling, and based on your profession. So yeah, and you're out in Atlanta. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay, that's where I'm based.
I read in an interview that you got started in high school with photography. And are you near Road Atlanta? Is that
no? So I grew up on the West Coast in Washington State. Okay, but I grew up near a racetrack in Portland. So.
What racetrack?
Portland International Raceway.
Oh, okay. I never heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not used a whole lot now for a lot of bigger events, unfortunately, but there was a lot of kind of grassroots racing, pretty much of all different varieties, that I had, thankfully, pretty easy access to growing up where I did.
That's cool. That's cool that you had that, because obviously that variety probably helped you understand like how things get photographed differently in different situations. Different cars have different personalities. Yeah, that's awesome. And was there somebody in your family? Like, how did you come into the world of photography?
I came into it by picking up my dad's film SLR, probably middle school age, and just kind of as a mechanical object being interested in it. And not so much at that time really being interested in photography, but just wanting to learn how the camera worked and just
are you a mechanical mind?
With it. Yeah.
Do you have is photography something that came to you just because of your interest in mechanical stuff, and then eventually became the art?
Initially, why I wanted to mess around with the camera was just it was a cool mechanical object with a bunch of interesting stuff going on. So to try and figure that out. Obviously you put some film in it and go shoot whatever, but that wasn't really at that age, not something I thought I would be. It wasn't a goal of mine to be doing this. I wasn't even really focused on motorsports or aviation at that time. It was just kind of like what's outside to point a camera at and figure out how this works.
Interesting. That's fantastic, because like given your work now, seems like your personality is wrapped up in it seems like it's all encompassing, right? It's your lifestyle, I'd imagine, and
pretty much it's most of my time at this point.
It has to be, because it doesn't make sense for somebody to be as prolific as you, and it seems like you travel from one thing to the next to the next to the next. When I message you on Instagram, you're over here And
Yeah.
then the next time I talk to you, you're over
Yeah.
there, and it's fascinating. It's really cool. It's cool to see, because obviously the dedication to what you're doing and the sacrifices I imagine to have to make in order to make it work. But that's really cool. And so photography kind of came to you out of curiosity at an early age, because I don't know if you had a chance to listen to these episodes. We usually like to start with, if people don't know who you are, we like to try and dig
Sure.
into where you came from, the origin
Okay.
story, basically. The Luke Skywalker of photography over here, trying
Okay.
getting into it. So, did you take that energy and curiosity and then translate it to education? Did you get educated on photography or?
So I took photography classes all throughout high school.
Mm,
Um, I'll say that I already had an interest in it like freshman year when I started with that and already knew kind of the basic stuff. Um, but it was definitely like a way and a specific time that I could kind of further all of that by taking those classes. So I didn't jump into it as a complete novice. Like I want to take these classes to learn photography. I mean, I did, but I already started with some kind of basic
mm.
knowledge.
That's good. Your photos for me have a voice, and that means to me that you're somewhat self-taught. You failed a lot through the
Mhm.
process, and is this true?
Yeah, I I wouldn't say I'm 100% self-taught. I had a great photography teacher in high school. I still keep in contact with him a little bit.
Oh yeah, who's
Yeah,
this?
his name is Richard Ray,
Shout out to
and
Richard.
yeah,
Yeah, you got to make sure
probably
you send
probably
him
one of the
this.
best teachers I've had, just in terms of being supportive of what I wanted to do and
Mm,
teaching a great class.
that
Um,
helps.
but if we're going back that far, really what I wanted to do and what I thought I would be doing now was like mechanical engineering or being on
Mm.
a race team as a mechanic, as a something in that capacity, not as a photographer.
Oh, interesting. Do you feel some sort of regret having gone into photography, or?
Not regret, but
Mm.
I still have an interest in doing that side of it, but I'm so far out of practice education on any of that that it wouldn't I'd have to start at the very bottom like a 18-year-old, sweeping the floors at a race team or something like that. So it's not a regret, but
Mm.
there's still the interest in that side of it that I definitely hold.
Well, the cool thing is with photography, it's almost like you can kind of spotlight that, and
Hmm.
showcase it. And I see that a bit in the way that you work with light and stuff too. You can kind of see. I get maybe. I mean, this is cool unwrapping kind of your approach to this, because it makes sense when I look at some of your photography, where it's like, for me, it's like the photographer's eye is the curious eye. It's like, this is what intrigues me about the world,
Hmm.
so I'm going to show this to you,
Sure. Yep.
and that comes, through different. It's translated obviously over time and from looking at things, but yeah, I'm looking at some of your work now just to like
Okay.
dive into it. But you shoot a lot. I've had Larry Chen on. I'm sure you're
Hmm.
familiar with Larry.
Yeah. Good friends with
Um,
Larry.
yeah, Larry's fantastic. He's a
Yeah.
wonderful human being, and
Yes.
he shoots a ton. Like, he shoots so much. You guys are kind of similar, where you're here and then you're there and
Hmm.
then you're there, and
He's
like, yeah, he's
he's
everywhere.
more on the road than I am, and
Yeah,
especially with the family. I don't know how he pulls that off, but
yeah,
good for
very
him, man.
supportive family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it either. Yeah, it's so much travel and stuff. It's probably one of the downsides, I would imagine. But
Yeah. I
yeah.
I asked him recently if he still like enjoys all of this,
Mm,
given what you said, so much travel, like there's got to be times where it's a drag, but he said yes, and you can definitely see that in in all of his content and his vlogs and stuff, and it's pretty cool
Yeah,
to
you
watch
can tell
him
he
blow
loves
up
it.
so much and still be like 100% excited about everything.
Yeah, he that's what makes him special. It's like
Hmm.
he's not deluded or jaded. He's just he you can tell he's an audiophile. Like he loves
Yeah.
cars and he loves the stories behind it, and he's got a lot of emotion invested into it.
Hmm.
He's also a really kind human being
Yeah,
too. Like
very.
yeah, and I think that's like yeah, he's one of those people that I admire on a lot of levels. Yeah, and that's cool that you know it makes sense that you guys would know
Yeah,
one
I've
another.
known him for at least 10 years, I think.
Okay.
And I mean, we see each other maybe once a year, if that. We just like, I mean, we're in the same arena, but
Yeah.
just kind of shooting different stuff. So we don't cross paths that often,
Hmm.
and even when we do, it's often just like a, hey, what's up? And we're busy doing our own thing. So,
Yeah, you're on the clock and just
yep,
going for it. Yeah. So let's go back to high school and then we'll go through it. So did you
sure.
get I mean, this is a question that is common with what we do as artists is
Mhm.
did you get a formal college education?
Yes.
Hmm.
And that was in automotive design, automotive
Hmm.
technology.
Oh, interesting.
Because
Okay.
even at that point, that was still the path that I was trying to follow. And I will say that while I enjoyed all of that, I think even starting college, I was getting fully into photography, and I don't know if I had a real specific destination that I wanted to be at with the automotive side of it.
Hmm.
So most of my focus personally outside of school was with photography and how to make that work. So I think I let the engineering stuff slip a little bit.
Sure. When you were figuring it out, there's a whole different world or there's this big shift that happens obviously with an artist when it becomes a hobby that you're passionate about and you consume everything about it, and then the second level is when you get the world to respond to your hobby by encouraging it through monetary
Mhm.
gain basically. When was the first time that you can recall when that switch happened in your career?
Um, I had people, local racers that would kind of hire me to work for them. Mid high school, I think.
Wow.
So I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't say it was a job at that point. Far from it, to be honest.
Sure.
But that was, I guess, kind of the point where I realized that maybe it wasn't only a hobby.
Mm. That it could work out, that this could grow and expand.
Yeah, and I guess I mean it wasn't fully up until I graduated college and just decided not to pursue any jobs in the engineering automotive field.
Yeah.
That I guess that's kind of when it was like, I guess I'm doing photography. So I
It
don't know
didn't
if it
dawn
was
on you
ever.
that this is the path.
No, not, I mean, not really, other than just kind of not knowing what exactly I wanted to. I mean, I didn't want to sit at a desk and do CAD drawings
Yeah.
all day. So, and I didn't really know how to pursue, like a hands-on race mechanic job or anything like that. Or even if I did, I just thought, you know what, this photography and being around race cars with that is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, it's a real necessary part of it that I think a lot of people get wrong in my opinion. There's not a ton of artistry that is attached to this part of racing as I see it. You're shooting like it's very cinematic. It reminds me of a lot of like Ridley Scott and Tony Scott's early
Okay.
work, you know, which I'm sure you're familiar with, like
Yeah.
Days of Thunder and things like that,
Hmm.
where it's high contrast and
Yeah.
great framing and things like that. Uh, is that a source of inspiration, cinema?
Yes. I don't know if I could say anything specific,
Mm.
but I mean, I definitely watch stuff like that. Watch Blade Runner and think this is an amazing looking film. I
Yeah.
wish my stuff could look this cool. And
The original Blade Runner?
yeah, or
Yeah.
well, either one, but
Yeah, the new
yeah,
one's good too. Roger Deakins shot the latest one, but yeah,
yeah.
the original one is Jordan
Didn't he do
Cronenworth.
both? Did he do both of them?
No, the original
No?
DOP is Jordan Cronenworth, I think. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'll look it up. But yeah,
Okay.
they're totally different. They use completely different methods too. Like Roger Deakins shoots spherical, the original one's anamorphic, completely
Okay.
different source, like and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, yeah, because when you look at that, I mean, that painting's like, I mean that movie's a moving painting
Sure.
basically. It's so much texture and things to it,
Yeah.
but the contrast level and how you frame light is what I'm talking about, like how you see pockets of light. The first shot I think I've ever saw of yours, which I think it was a Ferrari inside of a, what do you call that, like a barrack or something, where the light was coming in from outside and was all like purple and
Okay.
blue. You know what shot I'm talking about, right?
I think so.
Yeah, well, you shot trillions of
Yeah.
photos, but this one's quite iconic. And
Okay.
I remember going like, "This is so cinematic. It's almost like painterly." Because anybody, I don't know how you stand on this, but I think you give anybody the same camera, the same gear, and give them the same subject, one of them is going to figure it out differently,
Mhm.
and that's
Yeah.
the competitive edge. What do you think that is? Like, I mean, you're amongst a bunch of photographers, and I'm sure you
Yeah.
see your shots and go, "Oh, this is totally different."
I mean, yeah, we all often we're all thinking the same thing, the same kind of standard thing, but honestly, just as much, there can be six of us standing in the same, almost, shoulder to shoulder, shooting
You have
wildly
to
different.
usually, huh?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we could all be shooting wildly different things, different framing, different, you know, lens, lighting, different overall goal with the
Mm.
image. So,
Yeah, different crops and stuff too.
mhm.
I love how you play with crops, and there's like a story that's been told to it, or you're saying like, "Don't look here, look over there,"
Yeah.
and is that something of intention too? Like, walk me through it. You're sitting there in the, what do you call that? The press areas that you're able to go through, because you have to have like coverage, or what do you call it? Like admittance to these certain
Sure.
areas because
Yeah,
it's
we
dangerous.
have a credential thing that lets
Credentials.
us
That's it.
go more areas than the general public would be
Yeah.
typically.
Special stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are at a race event and
Hmm.
you have the credentials. Walk us through that for somebody that's never been to a racetrack. That's one of the best things you can do. If you get a chance to, please go watch a live race event. The sound that permeates your body, there's nothing else like it. If you got to like loud noises though, but
Yeah.
yeah. But walk us through that experience. Like you get on location, and how does that work usually?
Um, I will say that compared to other people, I don't plan ahead as much as A, people might think I do, or
Mm,
B, other people. It's just generally not how I think, not how I approach
I like
things.
that.
There's definite downsides to that, but
What are
so
the
often
downsides of not planning?
uh,
Coverage?
coverage, not being
Yeah.
able to take advantage of stuff that you're not aware of that you could have, researched beforehand. Um,
Mm,
but generally, I just kind of start walking around, and
mm.
I'll tend to gravitate towards the people that I'm working for, but um, try to get somewhere early, find some interesting light. I know that's a pretty vague term that
Yeah, don't get
doesn't
too
really have any
specific here,
specific.
Camden. Well, you shoot a lot of high contrast, which means light's coming towards the lens usually.
Yeah.
Um,
I,
you,
I guess I don't know if this specifically answers your question, but kind of my theory behind what I shoot is that let's say I'm showing my grandma a photo. She maybe doesn't know what a Ferrari F40 is,
How dare your grandma? No, just kidding.
and
Come on, grandma.
yeah, but what? How can I make this image interesting to someone that doesn't have knowledge of what the subject is per se, or the
That's
like
right.
the obvious subject? So how can I highlight some part of this car that's just an incredible design or a weird design, or how can I highlight the emotion of the person driving it?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I think anybody can kind of understand.
Mm-hmm.
And
Universal.
yeah, and at that point, it's not really an image of a car or an
That's right.
airplane. It's an image of determination, grit, whatever you want to, whatever it may be. So I think having, I'm not always focused on kind of details and being able to see, you know, perfect shadow detail, perfect whatever, but more so shapes,
Yep.
strong shapes. That's why there's a lot of high contrast work, as you pointed out.
I love it. It's
I love
bold.
it too. Yes,
Yeah.
I think it's a I can push it a little too far sometimes,
No.
and look at it later and be like, maybe that was a little maybe that was a little too much.
Yeah, you stop it down way. I love it.
But I think that's kind of what I'm looking for. You know, there's someone's taken apart the engine. What like maybe their hands are completely dirty,
Mhm.
and that kind of tells the story by itself without needing to see the whole car and the engine and the person, or it's
Couldn't.
just all the tools kind of thrown on the ground, not organized at that point. So it's shown that it's being used.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, there's a narrative aspect. That's why I brought
sure.
up Tony and Ridley Scott's work
Hmm.
in comparison in a good way. I don't I'm not intending to compare in a bad way, because
No.
like even you and Larry are completely different in my minds
Hmm.
of the what I get back from feedback. But I do love. I notice that when you have the sun, you use it as a contrast element, which is really fantastic. You shoot towards it, and
Yeah,
that's
I do a lot of backlit stuff that
yeah.
I I feel like maybe people teach that as a no-no, as a like, and I don't believe in that.
Same.
Um,
It's all about
so
the edge
there's
light.
yeah, there's I mean
uh,
there's certain times when it's not great. It's not the way to go, as
yeah.
is for any other circumstance. So,
Yes.
um, but it, you know, shooting against the sun, against the lights in the garage or whatever it may be, I think can help with that high contrast with shapes, with just big, bold structure, texture,
Yeah.
than shooting, I guess. I don't want to say like typical other people would, because other people can make amazing things doing the exact opposite that I might be doing.
That's beautiful, right? That's art. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah. Like there's really no rule, and
no.
what we like is completely different from other people. Which is like you said, that shooting the way that you shoot sometimes is a no-no. You know, as
Hmm.
you'd say. But in my opinion, there's no rules. It's either you like it or you
Sure.
don't, and that's your
Yeah.
prerogative. You know. So, but I would imagine you've maybe not now because you're a little later in your career, but in the beginning, shooting the way you shoot now might have been difficult to sell to certain people because they want to see, oh, we need the front 3/4 fully lit of the shot, and you're just like, that's death though. It looks
Yeah.
crap. How did you
I mean,
navigate that?
I think early on when I was, you know, showing my work to people driving their spec Miata or whatever at an autocross, that's what got people's attention
Mm.
versus just a front three-quarter shot that shows their whole car, um, which is what some people want. And so I think those people may have ignored what I was doing, but it is it is a struggle to try and figure out how to balance that. I mean, at some point, I'm working for people, and I need to do what they need, or
Sure.
there's a balance there. Luckily, I've found people that want to work with me because of what I do, and they generally that's what they want, and they kind of let me run mostly free with that.
That's awesome.
So that's that's been great. Um,
But you only
it
get
is
there because you pursued your taste, right? Is that correct?
sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to get at artist sovereignty. There's a lot of people that might be listening that are younger in their career that are having all these doubts and shoot in a weird way or they draw in a weird way. And I use air quotes for this because they're unique. I'm
Hmm.
always there to celebrate that. Like, go into that because the world
Yeah.
doesn't need another copycat of something else. You know, the world needs you to be authentic to yourself. And that's what I get from your photographs. I mean, this is going to be a whole podcast about how much I love your photography. So it's
All
just
right.
fantastic. So just
Oh,
soak
it's,
it
I
up.
mean, it's
Let the ego grow. Yeah.
sure. All right. I mean,
No, we'll get
it
into
means a
some
lot,
things,
man.
So,
Thank you.
oh, it's fantastic. It's a like this is how I look at your work a lot of times too, because I'm really into CGI, as you know.
Hmm.
Carlos and I, my friend and I, who made the Make Ace Corp, all that stuff, that whole car stuff that I think I've showed it to you.
Yeah.
We look at your work and say, okay, how far are we from this? We
Okay.
don't look at it as copying it. We look at it
Sure.
as we're in the digital camera, which is so difficult to mimic reality. How far away are we from capturing that emotion? It's still very far. It's
Yeah.
really difficult.
I
But,
don't know.
but we use your work as, and often, other people's work as well, and cinema and stuff. But a lot of times it's just like, how can we capture that likeness or that feeling in your work? And it's a great touchstone, which is really, really love it. So,
Appreciate that.
yeah. But it
I
comes
mean, I
down to
would,
you making the taste and you doing it. But
yeah,
so,
I would say that if if someone is, younger and looking to come into this, why would someone why would someone want to hire you or them?
hmm,
Is it do you, do you have a reason why someone would hire you over photographer A, B, or C, or D, or whatever down the line?
mhm.
If that's because you're producing different content and people are enjoying that, then yeah, you need to keep doing that. Try and figure out how to make that work. And I mean, there's definitely no shortage of people out there with a camera that you need to stand out above.
Mhm. It's highly saturated. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. When you approach, let's say you're going into, and we got to go back to when you had credentials and went through the day. We'll go back to
Hmm.
that and just, I keep
Sure.
jumping all over the place. Apologies. But when you, when you're sitting there and, or standing there and you're in the pursuit of a photograph, and let's say you've gotten yourself in the location that you want, you've wandered around. That's just how I like to do the same thing. You got to see first and then you shoot. But
Hmm.
anyways, you're there, you see, and you're looking for it and then it happens. But then do you ever have that happen where you're like, this is just like the shot that I shot last week or something? How do I differentiate that and
That's
reinvent myself? Because that's got to be a
that's
struggle too, because
that's
how much
pretty
work you
much
put out.
that's pretty much every event, because I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years, but other people have doing this for 60 years, going to the same 15, 20 places, possibly multiple times per year. So
Mm.
it's it's hard to get away from doing the same things over and over again once you figure out like what works,
Mm.
and and maybe, there's tracks that I've been to that I know some easy kind of boring stuff to shoot, and I know some pretty interesting stuff that's not totally hard to accomplish.
Mm.
Um, and it's hard not to do that kind of stuff repetitively, especially if there's like new people I'm working for
Mm.
every year. Because sometimes I feel like I need to shoot that stuff for them, because they might want that. But generally, I try not to do that, and I try to think, what is it about this image that is interesting, and if that's not answerable, then I might just not do it.
Simple advice, but useful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you have this position where you're looking and analyzing it, and then you're kind of in real time analyzing whether this is going to be something that's going to resonate or not. Because yeah,
Hmm.
if you're at the same track, but I mean, to be honest, you could. This is something probably you've understood too, and I'm sure you do. Like a lot of times when you're first getting into photography, you're shooting standing up.
Hmm.
You don't realize that there's a whole nother world at your
Sure.
ankle,
Yeah.
and then there's also a different world looking up from something else, which I noticed in
Yep.
your work as well. Like you have a lot, you're able to shoot from helicopters, I'm imagining, and different vantage points and stuff, which is really interesting as well. But yeah, that's another thing that I found really fascinating is there's a quite a depth of different variety to things where they could be quite stagnant and traditional or like expected, but there's a variation that happens to it. And I was
Hmm.
just curious as to your thinking patterns when you're going into this, but a lot of it seems like it's also just you manage to put yourself in the right place at the right time. The subject matter is already doing so much for you, you know?
Well, there's a lot of that. I think I gravitate to subjects where there is a lot going on, and I can kind of step back and observe and think, how do I want to portray this and just control myself?
Mm.
Like doing portraits or like a lot of commercial automotive work, having to be a director and control where all kinds of other stuff is not really how my brain works.
Mm.
And that kind of scenario is a little scary to me, as much as that's it's hard to admit that, but
It's good to admit it. You're more
I
reactional
think
then, huh?
yeah, well, I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of that. I think I thrive in a place where there's already some amount of things happening,
Mm.
and I can, whether that's just a one-time thing or if it's repetitive stuff going around in a circle in a track, um, I can observe and come to some conclusions about what I think is interesting about this in the specific place that I am. Or if I'm looking around and thinking, this is all kind of lame,
Then you
I'm going to
move.
walk. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to kneel down. I'm going to walk to the other side of the track. I'm going to turn around and see what I can see from this place where I'm right next to the track, but I'm shooting
Mm.
a mile the other way somewhere else.
You're constantly on the move, always on your
Yeah.
feet, moving. Yeah. On an average day, about how many photos do you think you would amass after a full day of shooting?
Um, it's usually like on a probably a typical race that's like 2 days of practice and then a 1 to 3 hour race. It's probably in the 5 or 6 thousand um, image range.
Mm.
For some of the longer 24-hour races that have a lot more track time, not only in the race itself but in the practice days and qualifying, it just kind of goes up exponentially from there.
Mm.
I've been trying to be a little more mindful, especially with cameras now that you can just rip
Pump them
off a
out.
million frames, and like the mirrorless stuff that you don't have a physical sense that you're you're taking any photos.
Yeah.
I've actually kind of started dialing my camera's frame per second down just so I don't come away with 60,000 images that I now have to sort through and figure out which of these 15 identical photos of a wrench is the right one. So
Yeah.
I'd say in general, I probably shoot too much.
Hmm.
Um,
Still, huh?
in a like a repetitive, there's no real use for taking 15 photos of a stationary wrench type of way. But
Hmm. Well, you shoot a lot of action too, so it makes sense to shoot a lot of frames in there, and
yeah,
you open up the shutter too, which is really nice, and add the motion and all that stuff, which is great too. But you also capture really sharp and crisp action, which is
hmm
of really fast moving objects from really far away. It looks like too, which is also interesting to navigate. What's your ratio? You'd say when you're done at the end of the day, you're like, okay, if I shot 5,000 photographs, how many are you selecting and saying this is worthy of others' attention?
I mean, there's probably 50 or so that I'll give to my clients that
Mm.
I think are solid and not like a series of 8 images of a car going through a corner. Because to me, those are all kind of the same thing. Maybe one on the entry and one on the exit can be different enough, but
Hmm.
somewhere around that, depending on.
It's a pretty good ratio, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that depends highly on where we are, what kind of race it is. A 24-hour race is a bit different than a 2.5 hour race as far as
Yeah, it's its own
what
animal.
what you can do. Although I don't think my ratio of stuff that I'm proud of really scales equally with the length of time. I think because I
Mm.
take more time to try and do one thing that's maybe a bit more obscure.
Mm. This
But
is
I
when you're
mean,
hunting for the
yeah.
shot. Yeah.
But overall, there's probably maybe five that I'm, you know, super proud of that I want the world to see, I
After
guess.
5,000.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. What percentage is that? Point one? No, 1%? No.
it'd be point one, I think.
Yeah, 0.1%. Yeah. This is good for everybody to hear too. Because uh, I think shooting action is I think shooting anything that has conviction and a narrative aspect or an artistic angle to it, especially in a world of chaos that you're kind of around,
hmm
is extremely difficult. And you only understand that when you're actually there doing it, which I've not. I guess I've shot a little bit, but like it's a whole different energy than shooting, say, a portrait. Not to say that one's easier than the other. It's just a different monster. Uh,
I mean, I would not want to be tasked with a
yeah, same.
typical portrait session. I mean, I would say that's harder for
Well, it's
for
just you
how.
have less mileage with it, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
Um,
But the portraits you capture through your work now, I love that they're candid moments of intensity.
mhm.
And this is what you mentioned earlier. What you strive for with some of your work, I'm imagining, is there's a narrative aspect to it,
Mhm.
which is it's definitely felt, which is great, and just being there amongst the moment of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely specifically with that, there's a lot of right place, right time, as you
Mhm.
kind of alluded to.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that 100% there's luck involved with that.
Hmm.
Probably a lot of luck, but you have to be ready to capitalize on that luck.
It's designed luck, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah,
It's luck by
I mean,
design.
it's
Yeah.
certainly there's some things where stuff has happened that I've totally had no idea would happen, and I've been able to, you know, click off a frame, and it's been really neat.
Mm.
But a lot of it is I might have five or six ideas in my head of what I think might happen, and I need to be in this certain place to be able to capture that if this guy turns around while he's putting on his gloves and steps into this little thing of light here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 75% of that. he doesn't, and he turns and walks the other way. So
But you still get at
there's
least 15 shots of that. So
sure, and then I'm like, why did I even take these photos? They're not really that interesting.
because the payoff would have been incredible. Yeah.
Yes,
And
so
you
there's
show up and you build your own luck, right?
yeah. So you need a it's luck, but it's also I was there, and usually I had something along those lines in mind
Hmm.
that I had in my head. Like if he does this, I'll do this. If they do a fat burnout out of the pit box, hopefully I'll be in a place where, the mechanic walks back through the smoke holding a tire and he looks all neat. So
And edge lit too, or backlit.
yeah.
Yeah. So you get the volumetric rays. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Hopefully, there's a car behind him with their headlights still on.
Mm.
They've just come into the pit and haven't shut the car off yet. A lot of those stuff that have to like all these things have to stack up to get what I might have in my head
The
as
layers and stuff. Yeah.
as this would be really neat, and I'm gonna sit here hoping that it does happen. Um, but often when I'm doing that, there's something I'll see out of the corner of my eye happening real quick that is equally cool that maybe I didn't have in my head, but
Mm.
luck says, "Hey, you got a chance at shooting this real quick."
Yeah. It's like, oh, over
And
there and over
yeah,
there. It's actually really
and
supportive of people that have ADD.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Lack of like extreme focus for a short amount of time.
hmm
And it's actually feeds that
yeah,
defect in other worlds, obviously, but an
sure.
absolute strength in this world. I never thought of it like that. I feel like if we ever shot together, I'd be right at the same spot, and it would, oh, look. Yeah.
I mean,
It'd be
a
so
lot of that
fun.
comes from being around this for long enough that you kind of get a feel
Mm.
for what happens. I'm sure, like anybody who shoots NFL Olympics for any length of time can kind of feel when something might be about to happen. So
Yeah,
that's that's a useful skill that comes with repetition and doing this a bunch.
yeah, sixth sense to it. Are you
Yeah.
still entertained, infatuated with the process of doing what you do, or has it lost its shimmer?
I mean, as you start doing something for work and people are asking you to do stuff that you might not want to do, you do lose a little bit of that, but
Sure.
um it's definitely not anywhere near gone though.
Hmm.
So so yes.
Yeah, so it's still a love, a connection,
Mhm.
basically, like of an infatuation. That's good.
It shows up more when I'm in a new place, like I'm going to a track for the first time or just a
Oh,
different
nice.
race, even if it's at a certain place that I've been to.
Hmm.
So that's where, I don't have any built-in knowledge of this is what I should be doing or shouldn't be doing. So I'm out figuring that out on my own for the
Hmm.
first time. And that's it's hard work.
Yeah.
Usually ends up being cool. Sometimes it doesn't if, things fall the wrong way and you pick the wrong places to be, but that's
Mhm.
kind of how it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you never know until you know, and then you can't
Yeah.
know unless you try. So
Yep.
it's like you're building out you're building out your fate, basically, and then you're
hmm
focusing and moving through it, because it is a bit chaotic. Have you
Sure.
had I don't know if I might have missed it. Have you had interest in shooting videography as well, film stuff, or is it still are you
Uh,
still into stills?
it's yes. I've messed around with it a little bit with some of the aviation stuff I do, and then I've done a few things with a production crew that I am friends with,
Mm.
but it's not a huge interest. Part of that is because I realize that I can't do stills and video at the same time.
They're totally
Like,
different things.
yeah, and it's just like you need to put your effort 100% in one or the other.
Yeah.
And there's very few scenarios where I'd want to not do still photography.
Hmm.
And I think that's a reason why I haven't really explored the video side of things too much.
Makes
I mean,
sense
also up until recently, not really having a camera that was worth anything
for video.
for video. Yeah,
You were using what are you using? Nikon?
yeah.
Still's
So
camera, right?
yeah,
Mm.
two. I bought the Z9, the mirrorless, like their flagship mirrorless camera,
Mm.
a year ago. So that as far as I'm concerned, not knowing a whole lot about video, that's a pretty solid piece for video
Mm.
on my
What's it
level.
called?
But
Z9.
the Z9,
I've never used Nikon or shot with them, so I don't know. It's kind of
yeah,
it's
we're kind of
it's kind of
the
funny,
odd,
right? Yeah, it's like people file into camps like, oh, I'm a Canon person, I'm a
yeah,
Nikon. I think it's because it's so expensive, honestly, and then you get
sure,
used to a system, and then you get comfortable with that. Do you? This is something I like to do. Is like I'll go on a trip and I say I'm only using this lens. That's it. When I
hmm
first started, I was like, I need all my lenses all the time, and I want all this variety. Do you do that as well? I mean, obviously not when you're on on client stuff. I'm sure you have to have your system, so you're like,
yeah.
yeah. But do
Um,
you do those kind of challenges?
well, so what I used to do, and this I've stopped doing this, but I used to shoot a lot of aviation, like air shows and stuff,
Mm.
just on my phone. And
That's
that's kind of
better.
like, that's super backwards to what, people that shoot airplanes are, they want the
Yeah,
biggest, longest telephoto lens that you can get.
yeah,
What can I do with a 24 mil pretty much? And
yeah.
a
iPhone?
crappy sensor with, yeah.
Yeah,
So what can I do with this wide angle lens with no no shallow depth of field, no like real dynamic range, crappy quality. I mean,
yeah.
crappy in comparison to any real still camera.
It's crappy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but you can get
that kind of
creative. Yeah.
yeah, that kind of taught me a lot of like about composition
Hmm.
or let me explore interesting composition to work with what I
Makeup.
had,
Yeah.
hide the flaws with my method, my choice of equipment,
Hmm.
but utilize what I had in the best way I could.
Hmm. Smart.
So I
Yeah.
don't I don't do that a whole lot now because I realize I can take a lot of other cool pictures with an actual camera of airplanes and stuff. But
Sure.
in general, up until just a couple weeks ago, pretty much I was just using three lenses.
Okay. Yeah, I saw
So
you have a 70 to 200.
So 35, 70 to 200 and a 500 prime is what I've been shooting on for pretty much the last, you know, forever. There's other stuff here and there, but that's
Mm.
basically what I'd bring with me. And that's,
Three lenses. 35
yeah,
prime, 70 200, and then 500 prime.
yeah. And
500 stops down to
that's
what, 2.8? But you usually shoot at what, F13 or something like that?
the 500 is a F4.
Okay.
But
Yeah, it's quite a lot of glass in there.
yeah,
It's
but
a
I
big
mean,
boy.
that's a pretty small kit for
Yeah, very
like,
small.
compared to a lot of the people I work alongside.
Sure.
Um,
It's a little bit lighter, a little bit more versatile though, huh?
Yeah, and I think I've it kind of goes back to something my photography teacher in high school said is like the best zoom lens is your own 2 feet. Like
Yes, I love that.
get up and move
Move.
around.
Yes.
So I've kind of been one to think that shooting on primes, I mean I have that 70 to 200 zoom is a good way to have to put some focus on what you're doing
Hmm.
and think about where you are, think about your composition, and not kind of correct anything with just a quick zoom.
Yeah. It's easy to just stand there with a 7200 and get plenty good coverage,
Yes.
especially when you get out to the 200. The separation between subject
Hmm.
matter and foreground and background is fantastic, especially if you can capture that compression.
Yeah.
Um, Especially with like aviation. It looks like on the aviation side, you're using your 500 a lot, I would imagine.
That's kind of what I'm shooting with generally just
Mm.
with generally the distances involved in that kind of stuff and how
Yeah.
big or small things are.
Yeah.
But I keep the 70 to 200 just because it's very versatile and it's something that I could, if Delta loses my bag or someone steals it, I
Yeah.
can have that and a camera with me all the time, and I can pretty much do most of what I want with that focal range.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. It's just a great fallback.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the gear is often a topic that's discussed with photography because, like everything, people think that it's, what do you think on that actually? Do you feel that your gear defines you or vice versa? Or, I mean, obviously you couldn't take photos without the camera, so it's relevant, but
yeah.
at what point do you go,
I
well,
think it. I tell people that it doesn't matter, and it certainly doesn't matter up to a point.
mhm,
I think initially when you're just starting to learn, it really doesn't matter. Like you need to figure out the basics with whatever it is, whether it's something shitty or something nice, and that's that's that could be debated as to what that is, um, also. But there's times when your gear matters, I think, but there's also ways where you could just do something else where that isn't a factor.
mm,
Um, not try to work against what you have. Um,
yeah. Well, working with the tool you have too. And like you mentioned
yeah.
too, like having limitations, like when I was first getting into photography, again, I picked up the 70 to 200. You might know this. I actually bought it from my friend Webb Land. Do you know Webb?
Okay. I've not met him personally, but I'm super aware of who he is. Yeah.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's a wonderful
Yeah.
guy, and he sold me some of his old lenses when he was like
Okay.
migrating. But it's so cool too because I'm like, oh, this is great because Webb loves these kind of things and all the things that he shot with it too. I still
Mhm.
have it, and but I was using it so much and I just loved it. But then I realized if I wanted to improve or advance after I got used to that, it's like, okay, now try another lens. And then I got
Mhm.
really into like vintage stuff and older things because it just deteriorates the image as well, which is really interesting. Have you dived into like using any older vintage stuff or optical
Uh,
kind of stuff?
I bought one of those Helios.
44 2?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the
The
swirly
Russian?
lens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually made an autofocus version of that.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it
How did you do that?
you can take the central part of it out,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to stick that in a older mechanical focus Nikon 50 mil
Oh,
because
interesting.
their older stuff is all mechanical autofocus.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's just like a screw drive from the body to the lens, and there's no really real electronics. It didn't work that well. It was autofocus, and it was just something I
Did you have to tune it
saw.
or was it still soft?
It was super soft, and it was more soft than it should be, just because it wasn't really aligned perfectly. It was something I saw like on a forum or a Reddit post somewhere, and thought, you know what, I'm gonna try and do this. So
And you
yeah,
did it. Oh, okay.
I've messed around with that a little bit.
Hmm. That's like the
I kind of
gateway
want to,
drug to the vintage stuff.
yeah, I kind of want to now more because the mirrorless stuff. I think you can do that focus peaking, and it'll show you more what's in focus versus the DSLR stuff. I think are kind of worse than an older film like 70s SLR as far as the screen showing you what's in focus or
Hmm.
not. I've always
Yeah.
struggled with that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Nikon's good with autofocus. So so.
yeah,
Yeah. So I can't. I've not used them, but I mean, I guess. I mean, as you mentioned, and I agree. And people ask me about gear. It's like at this point, it's like, oh, what camera did you use? I'm like, at this point, they're all amazing.
yeah,
They all outperform every photographer ever. So
sure.
the dynamic
I mean,
range
there's
and the just the overall ability that these little computers have, it's insane. Yeah.
places where I feel like I'll notice difference in gear is shooting at night.
Yeah,
Definitely like
ISO, the low light stuff.
autofocus or low light sensor
Yeah,
performance. And
yeah,
that can be somewhere where getting the newest camera makes a big deal, but
sure.
it's still like if you don't know how to use your old crappy camera,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to use your new fancy camera any better.
Yeah. When autofocus fails
So
for me, I go, fuck it. I'm on manual, baby.
yeah,
And then you're, oh, wow, I'm like having fun again. Now I'm shooting bokeh balls and like, oh, okay.
yeah,
And then I'm zooming and then it's just having fun, letting the failure or the
hmm
constraint hold you down. I mean, you have to, and I see it in your work too, and you're a reactional photographer, which I see in your work as well. This comes off of just being in the moment, reacting to that's what I think. Again, there's just a lot of compliments, but this is what I really enjoy. It's like, oh, the sand's moving up and hitting the helicopter, and it's creating these incredible like sparks that are now I can just shut it down a little bit, capture it, and then
hmm
it's just reactional to the moment of being there. I just feel it's cool. It's like you push me into the place. I think and there's a lot of things to love about photography. But when I see another photographer's work that I admire, it's like I like when you push me to where you're at currently. Because sure, anybody can crack the code of making something visually strong, but the feeling
hmm
of being transported is also a
yeah. I mean,
superpower.
I think that's part of the end goal is to kind of help someone understand what it was like watching what I was watching. Um, and
Yeah.
and if I can do that, that's awesome. Um, it's it's hard to accomplish that all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like you said, 0.1%. So,
Sure.
but I
Yeah.
also love the grandma role. I think that's a fantastic role. It's like
Yeah.
because
And I
universal.
think
Yeah.
yeah, I think you know
Is that what you call
what
it?
is
It's called the grandma rule, right?
that, I mean that's how I try to describe it. I mean,
Uh, no, you
I
coined
don't
it
want to
to here
call
today.
anyone's call anyone's grandma out for not knowing what a
How dare you,
Ferrari is, but
grandma?
yeah,
Every grandma should know what an F40 is. It's
I think they
unacceptable
should.
at this point. It's been around long enough and it's that great. So,
But even then, like, I don't think an image should have its worth based upon just this is a photo of LeBron James dunking a ball versus this is a photo of some random person doing that.
yeah, good
I mean,
point.
as as much as that shouldn't matter, it does.
Yeah.
But
To your
and
audience though, right? Which is
sure,
nebulous. Yeah.
yeah,
Because
and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but
Hmm.
I think if you have strong elements of anything else in the image, then it can be just as meaningful as if someone recognizes what like your subject is. And I guess I don't really want like I want my imagery to be like I don't want it to be like this is a photo of a car, like this is a photo of two people racing
Yeah.
or some kind of action, some kind of story.
Yeah, narrative.
Or I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like these are cool colors.
Hmm.
This triangle shape is fun. Uh, there's a whole lot of triangle shapes, and then this airplane is triangle also. So let's put them all together. So it can be as simple as that.
Yeah. Just being there and being aware and being
Yeah.
and living. Yeah. It's also like I feel like you're in the moment of the experience, and that's a beautiful thing. I think a lot of us. I don't know how you feel on this, so we should dig into it. But a lot of times we are either living in the past or the future. We're not living in the present. But with photography, you can't, like you said, you can try to project, but then it doesn't happen. But if you're aware, you just turn to the left and boom, something even crazier is happening. It's being
hmm
present and being in the moment.
Yeah.
I think that I find that to be a true blessing of photography. A true, if you're, I'm not a religious person or like into religion much outside of just studying it from afar. But when I had this kind of weird spiritual moment that just kind of hit me like a wave months back. I was with my friend Anthony. We were out filming a project and we were in this prairie area next to a lake in the early morning, and the sun was rising, and you're aware of the weather and the sun direction, all that kind of stuff when you're doing this stuff. And the sun was burning the vapors off the water and it was raising, but you can see it in real time. And I looked to my friend Anthony, who was over there, and I said, I think this is my religion. It's like I'm looking at God, or I don't know what it is. It's bigger than me. And it's one of the most beautiful things ever. And it's like, what an excuse what a wonderful excuse to spend time, with a person I love, but also seeing the world. Is this a kind of a daily operation for you, outside of the client stuff, I'm sure, but yeah, even merging them would be even more fantastic.
I don't know about daily, but certainly there's definitely times where something that I'm present for, I'm just, I mean, sometimes I'm like, I don't even want to photograph this just because it's like so cool, so whatever.
Yeah. I stopped even filming. I just was,
Yeah,
I think I just let it roll, and I was like, I'm a human right now.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely times when that feeling comes over me where I'm just like, holy shit, this is like really special.
hmm
Um,
And you're so lucky to be there
yeah,
to experience it. Yeah. And humbled by it.
I mean, hopefully in those moments I can make an image of it that
It
is meaningful, but often,
doesn't even come
it's just
close
like,
too, huh?
yeah,
Which is crazy. Yeah, that's funny. I love that that was your answer to that. That was exactly what I was hoping for. That because sometimes you are present for a moment that's bigger than you, and it just humbles
yeah,
you, and it almost
yeah.
cripples
There's
you.
like, well, there's I can think of one example of that. I'm sure you're familiar with the Nürburgring.
Yeah, of
The
course. Well,
Okay.
I've not driven it, but
Okay.
I've watched many
Well,
videos
you
of it.
know what it is,
Yeah,
and know that it's like
yeah,
the holy ground of racetracks in the
yeah.
world type
Special.
of thing. So I've shot the 24-hour race there a
Mm,
few times,
mm,
and it's something else
yeah.
as a whole. And
What do you mean?
they
Can you extrapolate on that?
just the atmosphere is unlike anything else. The weather there is also just totally wild.
Yeah, it's up
They
in the hills and the trees.
mhm.
Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah, it's
secluded too. There's like a little
yeah.
town that's adjacent, I think, and
Yeah, there's several towns that are inside of it. It's massive.
yeah.
It's unlike anything else. But there's for that race there's like 300 cars that are entered in that race.
Mm,
And normally a typical race has like maybe 50 max.
mm.
30 to 40 is a pretty
What's a long
pretty
track
average.
too, right? 10 miles or
It's a
something like that.
huge track, but the pit lane isn't a whole lot bigger than any other track. So
Mm.
they stuff like 6 teams per little pit garage.
Oh wow,
And
really? Oh,
yeah, and they all
interesting.
kind of have to cooperate, and sometimes they are fighting about stuff. But there was, I think it was 2019, whatever, that not super important, but it was at night in one of the practice sessions, and it just started pouring down rain,
Mm.
and that meant that
Your practice session or their practice session?
their practice session,
Okay.
their
Mm.
1 hour of drive around the track, figure out what your car is doing.
Shakedown and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so started dumping down rain. That meant 200 cars had to come in pit lane and put on rain tires,
hmm
and there's room for maybe 50 cars to do that.
Ah, nice.
So they started stacking cars 2 or 3 wide,
Mm.
and the whole time it's pouring down rain. There's lights everywhere. It's visually really really neat looking,
Yeah.
and
Are you on
it
comms
was
too? Do you have like a walkie on you and stuff? Or are you just kind
normally
of
no,
okay, cool. You just acknowledge. You
just
just oh wow, this
yeah,
is happening.
it's not something I generally am in need of.
Mm.
Sometimes I've had my little radio scanner to see what my team is doing, but in that case it wasn't a thing. But it was just like all of a sudden, boom, massive rainstorm, all these cars piling in, mechanics are changing tires. It's pretty much total chaos.
Mm.
But with with all the headlights, the track lighting, the teams like guys on their laptops, all the light from that was just one of the most visually like incredible scenes that I've witnessed. And the other part of it was that I'm in the pit lane trying not to get run over by any of these 200 cars. And at one point I realized like I need to just kind of back up and maybe just watch this because one, I'm going to get run over, but also this is just totally incredible what's happening right now. And I have some photos of that are really neat, but it was kind of just it was a little bit too hectic for me to really operate, I think, at my best. But it was one of those moments that I'll probably remember forever.
Mm. Beautiful. And it's cool. I can
Yeah,
tell that you go right back to it, which is great.
yeah,
Yeah. It's cool also that it was all artificial light, nighttime too.
hmm
So just much, and then with the rain, the artificial light doubles, right? Because of reflection. So you
yeah.
have
So
this
there's
like
reflection, and there's every car has different headlights. Some are LED, and they like do that like
flicker.
pulse
Yeah.
flicker thing, and then there's lights that are the track infrastructure lighting. There's a Ferris wheel in the background with all of its weird LED patterns on it. Just
So cool. Just to,
for what I like to shoot, it was just like someone threw $1 million at me right then and said, here, like grab as much as you can. Um,
that was a big spray day, I'm sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I love those. That's wonderful that you had that pocket. I'm sure there's so many more too, because it looks like you get in helicopters, and I mean we're talking just about race car stuff, but another whole other part of your career is military stuff. We should definitely talk about that
yeah,
because
sure.
damn, that is crazy. I mean, talk about money. I mean, it's really cute that you guys do racing and all, but here's a Raptor jet, like
Yeah.
this we could buy the Nuremberg ring with this thing.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
mean, the cost of these things is in the machinery and is just brutal, and the precision of those things. Just the Raptor alone, I know I've seen some photos that you've captured of that. That
Mhm.
shit is fucking fascinating, man. Those
Yeah.
I watch a lot of like nerdy videos on these kind of things. Like the Raptor
Okay.
does this and does that, and it could
Yeah.
obliterate people. I'm like, wow, this is so glad I'm American. Wow,
Yeah.
like
True.
glad I'm on this side of the fence of these things. Yeah. I mean, it seems like a natural progression from race car, the obsession in high school, being taught by a fantastic teacher. His name again?
Richard Ray.
Richard. Okay, I didn't want to miss it. So Richard,
Yep.
Mr. Ray, and now doing photography, going and traveling. That's a whole nother level again. Did the military stuff come as later on in the progression?
It it came later on in terms of me photographing it. I've been interested in aircraft aviation for, I mean, probably before I was interested in cars and stuff, although that
Mm.
has been an interest of, I mean,
Well, you love
I've,
mechanics and engineering.
yeah,
I mean, it's the
they've
echelon.
both been an interest of mine since I was, a little kid,
Hmm.
but I didn't really put any effort to aviation as a subject of my photography until probably the past 5 years. Like I said, I would do a lot of the cell phone stuff with that.
So cool.
But that was the extent of it, and it's still a very, even now it's a very minor part of my work, but it's a huge part of my just I love photography and I love jet noises. So and it's fun to watch stuff flying around. So
Yeah.
it's a huge part of my life at this point, but it's a small
Part of your
part.
client work where you're,
Yeah.
oh, that's interesting. I would have thought, as an outsider, I thought, oh wow, like the U.S. military is hiring you to actually capture. They should be.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, sure.
you need. Do you have a publicist or something like that helping you with that stuff, or?
Not really, no.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, dude, it might be a good idea to get one because
Maybe.
I mean, yeah, it's like when I look at this stuff, a friend of mine was over at my house. He's pretty high ranking military. And I was like, you guys see this guy's photographs of this stuff. And he was blown away because I think he was, he was doing something with the warthogs and stuff. That's what they call it, right? The one with the big
Hmm.
Gatling gun. That's friggin'
Yep.
basically
Yeah.
it's a flying mega gun.
Yep. Uh-huh.
But yeah, he was like, damn, this is artistic and stuff. Okay, well, damn. I would have thought so, just given the quality. So what you do is you know where the air shows are, and then you show up and then just go to town.
Hmm. Yeah.
Wow. But how do you
Air
get into
shows are
helicopters and stuff like that?
so probably the stuff you think I'm in a helicopter. I'm photographing the jets when they're doing their low level flying. So I'm on a mountain. I'm on the rim of a canyon, and
Ah,
they're
okay. Wow.
below me. So that's part of it is the exploration to go find that stuff.
Wow. So this is the planning then, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of it's a little opposite to how I approach the racing stuff
Mm.
because it needs planning. It
Yeah.
needs a lot of research to figure out
The flight
where
paths
the
and stuff.
stuff. Yeah,
Mm.
this I mean, obviously this is outside of like air shows and stuff because that's pretty obvious where those actions are going to take place
Mm.
over that specific airport or whatever. But
Hmm.
um,
Right place, right time. You use Sun
sure.
Surveyor, the app at Sun Surveyor. It
Sun Calc,
tells you where
yeah,
your sun is, basically.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Some app I have
On
that.
the
Yeah,
phone, you're oh, okay, cool. At this
yep,
time, it's going to be here. Okay, cool.
yeah,
Yeah. Therefore, I'm going to be in the shadow, or I'm going to be
yeah.
flat, or with it, or something.
I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of the times in with that, I'm much more limited on choice of where I can be just
Yeah.
because of it's impossible for me to get here
Not
with
impossible. You need a publicist, and
no.
I'll get you over there. Yeah. Yeah. It
No, but
feels
a lot
like
of times
they're
with
hiring you,
yeah.
honestly, from what I see. You're doing a
Well, I guess
fantastic
I
job at
mean
fooling me. Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
Most of that stuff is just because I love to do it,
Hmm.
and part of me wants to keep it mostly that way.
That's great. It's really
So it's
smart of
so
you to do
it's
that.
so it's always I wouldn't say it's relaxing, but it's always a enjoyable thing, and it doesn't have the this is now work
Hmm.
vibe to it.
Yeah, we should talk about
Which
that
I
actually, because that's a big shift. Oh shit, I need to make sure I get all these things, and then that pressure,
Mhm.
especially if you are a reactional artist, man, it kind of ruins it. Yeah, 'cause you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, at times it does,
Yeah.
and there's definitely times when I come away from 4 or 5 days shooting something and think, you know what, I'm really not happy with personally not really happy with what I've done as far as wanting to show people. I'm happy with what I've done for my clients and they're happy with it, but that doesn't always mean that's what I would have wanted to do given total freedom, given zero responsibilities.
Yeah. And if I was your client, I'd say just go to town, but
I mean, most of the time
that's the case.
that's thankfully what they do.
Yeah.
And but then, you know, I could go to town for 6 hours on one specific thing and it might not happen. And then I think, you know what, was that the best use of my time
Hmm.
for this person that's counting on me to do something?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Um,
It's a responsibility attached to it for
yeah.
sure.
Could I have taken 10 minutes to do some more or less standard things
Mm.
and then spend the rest of the time to do something more interesting? So it's often a time thing.
Hmm. Makes sense then.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
oddly, some of those longer races, the 24-hour races, I'll get done and I'm exhausted, but I still feel like there's 30 or 40 things that I didn't get to try.
Mm.
Um,
Well, that should always be the feeling though, right? Like you should,
I guess
yeah,
because that gives me something to look forward to for the next
that's
time.
right. Yeah. And always being hungry is
Yeah,
a sign of being humble. And
yeah,
that's so important though, right? Because if you lose that edge, what are you doing? you know.
Sure.
Yeah, you should be like humbled by the fact that there's never. I was once asked, "Is this a piece of art that I made? Is this your, I don't know, is this your best work of art?" And I said, "There's no such thing. It's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's the best
Yep.
work." I don't know what that is, too. I don't know what I'll love tomorrow. I don't know what it'll be,
Hmm.
but I'm humbled by the fact that I'll never make the best work because
Sure.
it doesn't
And you always
exist.
have something to strive for the next time.
It's so clutch. I mean, that's such an important part of the process. Yeah. Yeah. I would love to use, well, you pick whatever image you want to use for the banner of this, but
Okay.
if you can find the one where you're explaining that visceral moment with all the cars, I'd love to see that too.
Okay.
But with
I'll
literally
have to look up
almost
some of that.
everything that you have on posted online, it's like, oh, this is banner, this is banner, yeah. Anyways, before I forget, that's
Sure.
a simple request. But yeah, you really did fool me because I thought for sure that the stuff that you were doing with the military was just, yeah, I got to figure out.
There's a,
Yeah,
there's a few things that have been more official than not,
yeah.
but it's not a large percent of it.
Have you
Just
watched the
because I
latest Top Gun movie? The cinematography is
yeah.
probably a
Oh
good
yeah.
inspiration there too, huh?
It's amazing. Yeah.
Joseph has fantastic visual taste. The director Joseph Kaczynski did the
Yeah.
Tron movie and stuff as well.
Hmm.
Works with quite a few of my friends, but yeah, his
Okay,
visual
cool.
sense is fantastic and
Yeah.
such a great look. Do you what did you think of the Batman? Did you enjoy that? I could see some
I haven't seen the
commingling.
latest
Oh, you should
one.
watch it. That's I
I
mean,
know because you did the vehicle for that.
yeah, I designed it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
and Greg Fraser
Yeah,
is fantastic. He's one of the best
I feel bad
cinematographers.
for not having
No, it's
seen your
okay.
creation, but
Someday you'll see it. Yeah, and maybe not,
sure.
but I think you would actually enjoy it because of the way that Greg and the team and Greg shot it. Basically, the actual action sequences and stuff. I think um, might impact you in a positive
Okay.
way creatively. I'm not trying to spam you with that, but I think
No,
so. There's
not at
some of your
all.
photographs. I'm like, oh wow. I've sent Greg some of your work too because I'm like, dude, check this out. This is crazy. I think also, did you ever talk to William Eubank? I think I connected you to William.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's fantastic as well because he's was looking for something that was aligned with what you were doing, which is great as
Yeah.
inspiration. So that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen the final product that they use some of my stuff for, I think.
Oh, great.
I don't know if that's finished or
Yeah, it's a process.
what the story is with that. Not that I'm fishing for that to be done or whatever, but yeah, thanks for putting me in touch with that.
Absolutely.
That was something where my what I thought were just kind of random clips that I thought I guess it's cool that someone else had a use for them.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess going back to experimenting with video, yeah, I've done a little bit, but
Yeah, that's what he was
um,
looking for, like video stuff. And I was like, well, he's the best one. So I don't know if he does
yeah.
video. So yeah.
And he asked me, and I'm kind of just like, I have a bunch of these random clips and sent them all over, and
Fantastic.
assuming that these are junk, no one, you know,
I would really love to see
but
you do video. That'd be really crazy. But as you mentioned, it's a completely different methodology and approach too.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it require. I mean, it requires more focus and maybe more knowledge of what the final product is going to be,
Yeah.
more so than a single photo does.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so that is not a strong point for me. So
It's taxing, man.
maybe maybe I'm a cinematographer and not a director and not an editor.
Hmm.
Um, although I mean technically I'm all three for my
Stills.
stills work.
Yeah.
But there's a difference in quantity and overall
It's just a different
necessity
monster.
for yeah.
Yeah. We should talk about your post processing as well. You
Okay.
using Lightroom, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic tool. There's
Uh-huh.
certain things because I don't know if you're the same. The way I look at it is there's a photographer in the field capturing the moment and the memory, then I like to go home, and then there's the second photographer, the one that's trying to remember what it felt like.
Hmm.
That's what I think of as grading. How do you approach it?
I mean, there's. I think I'm trying to show. I mean, like you said, what it felt like. Like
Mm,
how can I share this with someone else such that they might have a hint of my experience or what it meant to me
mm,
seeing whatever it is that the photo is. So there's I think I'm farther away than pure like documentary type of photography, but I think it's more like, you know, it's all about the final product. So
mm.
the actual, shooting it with the camera is one part of that. And then there's several other steps in that before you output the final product to your audience. And the editing, processing, whatever you want to call it, is a key part of that.
Yeah, it's essential. It's kind of when everything comes back. It's the part of the way I look at it. It's like you have the moment, the candid moment, you capture it raw,
Hmm.
and then the next part is really where the emotional tonality gets ramped up or ramped
Yeah,
down. However, it's like one more layer of
sure.
meddling basically with it, and it's cool. Like I don't know, I could be wrong. I probably can't speak on all your photos, but it doesn't seem like you do. Like sometimes when people shoot this kind of stuff, they do like a ridiculous amount of post processing that's it becomes gaudy and it reduces the image down to some sort of like weird watch commercial or some sort of product thing.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? When they would
Yeah.
go like, remember when like HDR came out? I think that's what it was called,
Yeah.
and everything was exposed and perfect. And
Yep.
you're like, okay, come on,
Hmm.
guys, like let's calm down here. Like
Yeah.
not everything's like this, and it feels weird. I feel like you give things a universal feel. Is that true about your approach to this?
Um, I think, I mean, in terms of there's kind of a theme of, strong colors, high contrast,
Mm.
um, less specific detail on any one thing. I mean, I think you could say that's universal in my work for the most part, if that's what you were asking. Um, but I mean, just like you said with the HDR stuff, like it doesn't look like that. Shadows aren't completely black, highlights aren't completely white. That doesn't necessarily exist, but also that's kind of what it feels like when I'm looking at that. So that's what I gravitate towards in my post processing, as far as, you know, this is a shadow and this is in the light. So it should be nearly dark and this should be very bright
Mm.
to show these shapes and stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's a dream for you? Like, what would be tomorrow an opportunity landed on your lap? What does that dream look like? That dream job, that dream position, the dream moment, the thing that you could capture,
Hmm.
experience. What is that? Do you know what that is?
I'm not sure I do. Um,
You live in it.
I mean, well, I mean, yes.
This is good.
Occasionally I stop and think, and like it's pretty cool to be doing what I'm doing and have all these experiences that I've had, things I got to see, and that it's looking like it's working great and will continue.
It's fantastic.
I think in the general sense, a dream would just be to continuously do new things,
Mm,
new events, new places. Maybe it's weird lenses,
I like to see that.
different
That'd be cool.
different techniques.
Yeah.
Specifically, there's a an off-road race called the Dakar Rally.
Oh yeah.
It's Saudi Arabia is where they hold it now, but it's like 2 weeks of just nonstop grueling um, desert awesomeness is how I would describe it. And it's I guess what I like is somewhere where I can really get into something,
Hmm.
which is why I don't like doing a whole lot of like editorial automotive things where like, hey, we have this Mustang GT500, let's take it to the track for a day. I've certainly done that, and it's usually with friends of mine who know how I work and are okay working with my style, and just because it's an enjoyable time being with friends doing car stuff.
Hmm.
But I don't feel that there's a whole lot of purpose to that for me.
There's a ceiling.
Other people,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
other people that I see that shoot a lot of that stuff come up with incredible things that I just don't
Yeah.
personally know that I could do.
Hmm.
So I won't say that
Is it
it
due to
has no
like a lack of
purpose.
interest?
Some of it's a lack of interest. Some of it's just like I think more planning
Mhm.
goes into it than I do. Like
Yeah.
more of a I have these images in my head and I know exactly what I need to tell people to do, where I need to place things, what lights I need to have, that kind of stuff that isn't really me or how I work.
Yeah.
But I see what people can do with that and think, wow, that's pretty neat. And
Well, I would say what those people are trying to do, in my opinion, is they're trying to do what you're doing naturally by being in the moment of capturing that thing. They're trying to do it, but they're trying to replicate it. And that's super hard to do. Yeah.
I agree it's super hard to do. I don't know if they were
Not
I don't know
you
necessarily
specifically,
that
but
they're
like capturing the moment of
okay. Yeah.
they're trying to capture the 0.1% continually.
Hmm.
That's what that's the way I
Yes.
look at it, you know. Yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what all photographers, I would imagine most photographers are trying to do. They're trying to capture more of the 0.1%, you know. But the
And the
candid
people
moment.
that I see that do that well, I mean, Webb is a good example
Hmm. Yeah, web.
of someone that does a lot of the commercial I mean, commercial, whatever. That's doesn't really have any meaning, but um, someone I can look at his images and think these have a purpose to them.
Mm.
These, and I can't imagine myself doing that, but I can see all the work that went into that and think, this is something special.
Hmm. Yeah. So Dakar Rally is the dream one, huh?
Yeah, that's one of like the dream events, I guess you'd say, just because it's 2 weeks of getting down and dirty in the sand and dust and tons of miles on the road, getting from place to place.
Mm.
I don't even begin to understand how the logistics of that works.
It's crazy.
But
Just racing in general. It's so unnatural and so weird, and there's so
yeah,
much money involved.
uh,
Oftentimes when I'm around these things, I'm like, who has got this kind of wealth that's just funding these things? Yeah. Because do you come from wealth, or is this like, are you a self-made person?
not really.
Yeah. So it's like, it's weird when you're around these multi-million, sometimes billion-dollar machines. You're just like, this is wild.
Yeah,
You were at the King of
yeah. There's
Hammers,
there's
right? You were there
yes,
recently. That's a crazy thing too, huh? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Next time you're in my area, I don't know if that's my area, but you should let me know if you don't mind.
Where is your area?
San Diego, LA area. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm out there a decent amount.
Okay. Yeah. Let me know. It'd be fun to go
Sure.
and explore and have fun and giggle while
There's a
taking
lot of a lot
photographs.
of aviation stuff out that way,
Yeah. I never
and then
utilized it too. I'd love to. Yeah.
yeah,
Because it's just so cool. I should maybe, he's leaving, but I had like this huge, the Sigma, the big, huge one. It was like to 600 mil or something like that. But
sure. 150 to
yeah,
600
150,
or
600. Yeah.
50 to 60 to 600,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, it's it. I was like, oh, this is perfect for that kind of thing. But also, I went the other way with my lenses, where I was like, this is too clean and sterile, and it lacks
Hmm.
that impurity. So I went to like full on weird Nikkor lenses and like all this weird stuff, and you could put like Vaseline on like the UV filter
Yeah,
and pull the light, and Yeah, that's the stuff that's really interesting to me. You'll see when you watch, if you do watch the Batman. I think
Okay.
Greg, they used a lot of old anamorphics, but when they shot the car, actually used rehoused Helios lenses
Okay.
with the fake anamorphic, I think, in the back of the element, and
Yeah.
then they would put Vaseline and stuff on the UV filter,
Okay.
so it would smear and cast. You'll
I've
see,
done
yeah.
I've done a similar thing. You just take your thumb and smear the front element of your lens, and if you point it at like a street light, it'll make all these
Mm-hmm.
like
Striations.
big, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've done that a few times, especially when we're at Daytona, which is a NASCAR track with a ton of lights on it. So at night, that
Mm.
can get some weird lighting effects going on.
Not on the front of the lens, but on the UV.
You,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
well, both,
Oh
but
no! Don't do that. Don't listen, people. Don't do that. I think I saw. Did you have like a story where you just like absolutely obliterated your lenses, and like you had to go like,
I'm
yeah,
I'm generally kind of rough on my things, or I think like if I need to set something down here
Mm.
because that's what I need in the moment, then I'm going to set it down here. And if I trip and knock it off this rock, then okay,
you have to be then. Yeah,
that's my dumbass's fault, and I'll deal with
yeah.
that as it comes. So yeah, if I don't have a filter on the front of the lens and I want to make some weird light smear, then
Oh man,
go for
your
it.
poor lenses. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
seeing. Yeah, I remember seeing like some. I think it was on Instagram where it was like a story of like the service that you had to do on your one lens was more expensive than the actual lens. Or play
Yeah,
stupid
I
games, get
sent in a
stupid
lot of my stuff.
gifts,
I sent in a lot of my stuff recently that had been long overdue for
cleanings and stuff.
service.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of a story for my whole time doing this is just constantly working around like halfway broken things, and
Oh man.
you gotta crank this lens like this on the body to get it to focus, otherwise it'll freak out
Oh, it
or
doesn't
something
connect
like
with
that.
like the
So
autofocus and stuff.
yeah, or
Yeah.
just kind of silly stuff like that
Hmm.
from me tripping when I'm walking upstairs or something, and the lens is the first thing that hits the ground to break my fall.
I love
But
that. It's good you're using it though.
when you're out, yeah,
Yeah.
when you're out climbing rocks and stuff, that's kind of what happens.
Yeah.
Um, some people are a little more cautious than I am, but I I also maybe have more backup stuff
Hmm.
than other people might.
You have like a
Or
decent sized kit of backups, or just like triple backup,
yeah,
basically.
I've got a replacement for most of the stuff that I have.
Mm.
So if one thing goes down, I can a just deal with it, and if I'm out my 500, then I'm thinking of other stuff to do that suits my
Mm.
shorter lenses that I have, or I can run home and get another one.
That's if you're close to home. Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm often not.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Do you well, I will wrap this up here, but do you one thing I love to ask all of our guests, because a lot of times those that are listening, we're all students of art, and we're
Mhm.
all very interested in these kind of things, and I would say like, we're all studying and looking at other people as benchmarks of things. When Is there a piece of advice that you wish you could give your younger self to alleviate some sort of friction point, or help you navigate a certain problem that you faced that you've got overcome? Is there something that comes to mind that you could give yourself?
Mm, Maybe don't follow any of the so-called rules too closely,
Yeah.
or don't pay too much attention to that. I mean, there's reasons why those things exist, but also there's 400,000 ways that you could go against that and make something really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess don't get like specific example. One thing for like a lot of aviation photography, especially playing with a propeller, is that like don't freeze the propeller. because then it looks weird. I mean, same with a car. Like, I think a lot of people think that you got to have the wheels moving, you got to have the propeller spinning, but oftentimes that might be actively inhibiting some other piece of the photo you might want to make,
Mhm.
and getting hung up on some little portion of that and not thinking about the overall image or meaning, or like, what do you want to say with this photo? Getting hung up on some little technical detail is not that helpful. So
Love that. Yeah.
that's one thing. The other thing is, for people wanting to do this as a job, maybe taking business classes rather than photography classes
Mm.
might be a smarter way to go about it. Because that's a lot of this isn't how interesting is your photos, it's how good are you at talking to people and negotiating stuff.
Mm.
Which that's something I never learned or not learned any official capacity, and
Uh,
just kind of had to figure it out as I go, which is, it can be difficult.
yes. It's horrible to learn that because as an artist, we spend so much time saturated in the act of creation and the art form. And then anything outside of that is almost a burden because we're like, I
Mm-hmm.
just want to be doing my drug. I want this drug.
Yes.
And I don't want to be hindered by these other things. But that's a great advice too, especially if you want to learn how to do that. I have a book that I'm going through right now that I mean, I read a lot of books, but this one, I'm not sure if you've read this one before, but it's called the Win Without Pitching Manifesto.
No, I have not.
Fantastic book so far. It's really
Okay.
condensed, so it's only 2.5 hours, which I love, and it's really condensed. There's a lot of information, but what it's doing for me is it's strengthening my approach to how I communicate my value to others and also my clients and so on and so forth. And it helps me because a lot of times, when the drug is so good, you're desperate. And you're like, I'll just do it for like free. And that's okay
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have bills to pay, do it for free. But if you have bills to pay and you have things to take care of and people to be accountable for, then it's almost a hindrance to your life and your work
Sure.
to be doing it like that too. I'm sure with you, I don't know. Actually, I'm curious. Like when you first started out, was a lot of it spec and free until it started to gain traction?
Yeah, there was a lot of that, and I think, I mean, people say don't work for free, and I would modify that by saying that not being paid doesn't necessarily mean it's free.
Mhm.
Like, you could still be getting something out of it, with
You learn.
even if it's not monetary. So
Yeah.
maybe take that into account. Like, I mean, certainly there's a problem with people saying, "Hey, can you work for exposure or whatever?" That at a certain point that is detrimental.
Yeah.
Um,
Exposure bucks. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
When I was first
not
starting out,
not
I was
ex-
like, I had my hands on, I wanted everything, give it to me. I was desperate and
Sure.
hungry for it. And I was okay with that. That was a choice that I made. But I wasn't trying to complain like, I did all this stuff for, no, it was like, I know what I was doing.
No,
And
sure.
basically I was like, I will learn. I'm going to
Hmm.
go through school because I couldn't afford to go to art center or these other schools that I knew that I would get that kind of level of experience. So I was like, it's okay. Take the hit now for experience bucks, not exposure bucks, but experience bucks. Because yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's a time in your life that you should do things for experience. I think that's
Hmm.
really key. And even today, and even nowadays too, like I love finding a project or a person that needs my expertise that can't afford it. And I love just giving that to them because it's also really important in my heart to give because that's when you learn
Hmm.
the most too. Sometimes, it's like,
Yeah,
yeah. And then there's not that weird thing where there's expectations and stuff and you can exceed it because
sure.
there's that better exchange. So it's almost kind of takes it back to the original state of like capitalism. I don't know if that makes sense, but where things were trade and bartered. He's like,
Hmm.
oh, like you're really good at that. And I'm good at this. So we'll trade on this. And that's kind of fair, right? And it's a discussion. And
Yeah.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
more healthy. Yeah.
I do that now. I mean, I've had friends with race cars, or there's a guy local to me with he's getting into aerobatic flying and has asked if I can take photos of him, and like he'd pay me, and I kind of said, if we can keep this on a fun, like kind of casual level, this is stuff that I like to shoot. I'm more than happy to come out for a day and just make whatever I want to make and not have it be work.
Mm, what a blessing.
And yeah, and you can use whatever the product that I make is. If it's bad, then whatever, we can try again,
Mm,
but it's not going to be, I don't want to make it a weird, awkward scenario.
mm.
I'd rather just do something for the enjoyment, for the experience, for the learning, for the trying something new and having a kind of easy scenario where if you fail, it's okay, and there's not a huge ad agency like, hey, why didn't you do this type of thing.
Yeah.
So,
And that's where you learn a lot too. Yeah. I mean, you learn a lot always if you're present, right?
mhm.
Like, oh, this is, working with an agency, you learn a lot because you're like, oh, this is pressure. You learn a lot sometimes about what you don't like. And that's
Sure.
also just as
Yeah.
important as what you do like.
Yes.
Yeah. So, which is always fascinating, but that's cool. Yeah. And it's good to know that too. And that's something that I thrive on too.
And
So,
and in that sense, I'm working for free because there's zero money, but I'm not getting anything out of that. And
hmm
in that way, I don't see it as working for free.
yeah.
If
Yeah. Well, you're still
if you're
honing your
working and
craft.
someone's yeah, if you're doing something and someone's constantly telling you do this, do that, and you don't want to do it, yet you're not getting paid, you're not learning anything, then yeah, that's not a
That's no good.
beneficial. No, that's not good.
That's when you decide. I mean, there's a choice matrix you can just you could quickly decipher. Like, because usually when I make a choice to do something, I'm like, number one, does it make me happy? Does it bring me happiness? That's the number
Hmm.
one for me. And then number
Yeah,
two, does it give me fulfillment, which is connected to happiness, but they're slightly different. And then number three, does it offer some sort of like recovery on the energy put into it? And then usually
sure.
from that, so I end up saying no a fuck time.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I guess that's another thing is learn when to say no.
yeah,
Because if you get yourself into something where you're not, specifically if you're not happy with what you're doing yourself, you're not gonna like, if I'm not happy with what I've shot, I don't really want anyone else to see it.
yeah, totally.
And if I'm doing something and the final, like, the brochure for this car comes out and I don't want to go tell people that, hey, I did these photos, then to me there's no use in that.
Yeah,
Um,
there's no
and
takeaway.
that's no, and that generally that's not a scenario that leads to good work, I don't think.
Yeah, or
Um,
continual good work. Yeah, because I
yeah,
always had that rule too. Is like never show the work you're not proud of, because you'll just get more of that work you're not proud of.
yeah.
Only show the work that you're most proud of. Uh,
Or you'll have people asking you to do that because maybe it's something they like, but
but you don't like it.
if you don't, yeah.
Yeah, and then you're
I mean,
just
you gotta
perpetuating it.
you gotta balance that, but
Yeah, well, especially at the beginning too. But again, if you're not desperate, I mean, think about all the brave artists that have gone, you know what, fuck it. I don't care about any of these rules. I don't care about, and they might, the Van Goghs of the world where they might go through a whole life of pain and suffering and then they're dead and then they become relevant. And that's the irony of a lot of artists too. But there's, I think, and I think you probably agree is that there is a way to do it during your life to have
Mhm.
that fulfillment, but also have that amount. And that's why you go and travel. And even if the air show isn't paying you, you're just like, I love this jet and I want to capture
Yeah,
rad photographs of it. And I thankfully have the time and the budget to go here and experience that.
sure. I mean, that stuff is a way to keep my mind active,
Mhm.
my photography mind trying new things, in in an arena where there's no one telling me what to do
Yeah.
usually.
Hmm.
Um, so I can try new things if the motorsport stuff is getting on my nerves, and there's always something I can go do that generally doesn't.
Mm.
So I enjoy having that. I think it's important to have something like that. I mean, not it doesn't have to be another type of photography, like, other people want to go fishing or go whatever, blah blah blah, do something else. But
Yeah.
I think it's important to have something else that you can do.
Yeah. It's cool that you're addicted to this, though.
I think it's cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool so far.
Well, I think it's helping. Yeah. And there's obviously an addiction to it, which is fantastic. I always say,
Hmm.
like, when you're the drug and the drug dealer, things get interesting, so you're constantly
Yeah,
dopamine and you're happening in real time. It's,
yeah.
again, great photography is the photographer's in present in the moment. So you're also present, which is fantastic. Especially your style, which is just feedback, basically. Like, the world's doing this, I'm being here and I'm capturing that and putting yourself out there. Yeah, that's one of the things I love about photography is it's an excuse to get out and experience and live your life. And it's like, it is a device to create memories. And
Hmm.
wow, what a beautiful thing that is. What a gift that
Yeah.
can be. And all artists, like, of all ranges, of all disciplines and interests, the thing I say the most is literally get a camera. Get any camera, it doesn't matter. Just get one and use it and understand image making and discover it. And like you said too, the sense of rules, they're designed to be broken, especially in the beginning. You're supposed to just literally follow whatever is inspiring you. And there's no right rules. You could do everything you
Hmm.
want and try to copy you, but you'll never be you because you're doing you in real time. They're doing you past time, which is really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I have people ask me
I see it in the
more so for
questions.
aviation. Yeah,
Yeah.
more so for aviation stuff. Like what's the best lens to shoot an air show?
Mm.
And
iPhone.
I could give a standard boring answer like Sigma 150 to 600,
Hmm.
but the oftentimes the better answer, or what I really want people to think is like, well, what kind of imagery do you want to
That's
make?
right. That's the question. What are you trying to do?
Like that drives everything.
Mm.
And so that's the hard question to answer in a general sense like that. And I try to lead people towards thinking about what they want to do,
Mm.
because then the gear, the location, everything else will kind of fall into place to make that a reality.
Mm. That's right.
But when people just say, "Hey, what lenses do you use?
Mm.
How do I take better photos?" Like, there's not really an answer to that. And if you're not thinking about the end goal, which, I mean, it takes time to be able to do that, but
Mm.
there's no way to answer that, and there's no way to improve if you're
There's no way. Yeah. If
not
you're not failing.
not constantly doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not in the art, living it. Yeah. And you're on 10 years, you said? And you're 10 of doing this?
I graduated in 2012, so
Mm.
it's yeah. I mean, at that point, this was my
Well, it's
only thing I'm
it's
doing.
kind of the number, though. You've heard the 10,000 hour
Yeah,
rule kind of thing. So you're
yeah.
coming up on your 10,000 hour rule. Even when I look at your catalog of work, these last, and this is just from my outside perspective, these last, I don't know if I'm getting the dates right, but the last 2 to 3 years, it's like you've taken off into a different. Do you feel that with your work? You know what I'm saying? Do you see it or no?
I do. I also see this all the stuff I've struggled with, which
Sure. As an artist,
you
you
or
see it.
anyone
Yeah.
else wouldn't see.
Yeah.
You know, I've made some posts here and there that was like, this was really a struggle, blah blah blah,
Mm.
and I'll post a few pictures, and people are like, well, "What's the struggle? These are amazing." And I said, "Well, you didn't see the other like four images that are kind of neat. Don't really tell the whole story of the experience that I had at this thing that, you know, maybe overall didn't go as well as I thought, but
Yeah. Well, the audience has the privilege of not having to care about any of those
yeah,
things, which is,
being blind to
yeah,
that.
which is
But
fantastic. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I definitely hope that I'm continually improving on what I'm doing.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
I'm seeing it.
that's the goal.
Well, what I'm seeing, and this is again an outside observer for whatever it means, but a strong sense of purpose style approach is emerging. That's how I see it. I don't even know how to describe it, but there's like a sense of confidence of sorts. Like, oh
I
shit,
mean, I
I've
guess
seen this so many times, but now it's like
sure,
I'm here.
and that's
Now I'm going to step it down. I'm going to do little things that are a little bit more bold
yeah,
against maybe what would be traditionally acceptable. Yeah.
that's almost exactly what I was going to say. Is that now, you know, honestly, after probably 3 or 4 times of doing one event,
Mhm.
I've kind of exhausted like the realm of general stuff
Mhm.
that I can do, and now I need to think way more outside the box to try and find something that's mentally engaging that I haven't done already. So I think I'm definitely at that point where I'm often thinking I've taken this photo way too many times. What
Yeah.
can I not do it this time, and what else can I do?
Yeah.
So that gets tougher and tougher as you go along. If you're
Pushing.
doing the same thing, but
Yeah. How can I make this subject matter more interesting or more
yeah,
narrative or make it so it's not about the subject matter, which is what you said. Transcend that.
yeah,
Use art as the vessel to
sure,
transcend. Yeah. Which is cool.
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing it personally. So if you have doubts, which it doesn't seem like you do, but if you do, I'm very aware that it's a path that's happening, just as an observer. So, and it's cool that you're constantly
Well,
striving for it. So never end that
yeah,
curiosity, obviously, because it's it again. As I said, this is one thing I love about when artists are like yourself or many people that have been on this podcast. They are pushing themselves out of the realm to become a better version of themselves. That is richening the cycle, the zeitgeist of everybody out there. By you doing you, being you authentically for 10 years doing this, it's enriching me and say like the CGI approach to things or
hmm
even my photography. It's like, oh, this is cool. I'm not thinking how you would do it because that's you, but I'm
yeah,
thinking, how can I approach this with that mentality? You know?
yeah. Well, I mean, we all kind of look at other stuff,
Yeah.
and I'd hope that. I mean, I look at other people's work and I think I like these things. I don't like these things.
Hmm.
What if I did it this way?
Yeah. It's a great way to
I would
analyze
hope that,
work.
yeah, I would hope that that's what people are doing instead of I want to take this photo
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly a lot of that.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you're doing kind of sports stuff at the same venues. There's iconic photos that are cool to me to have taken this iconic image, even though there's basically no creativity in that. But then you do that and you think, well, okay, how do I do this in another way that maybe I haven't seen done before, but isn't just different for the sake of being different?
Hmm.
Like what's a different meaning that I can add to this? Because I don't think shooting at half a second just to get blurry stuff just for the sake of doing that is useful, or shooting at f1.2 all the time just because.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's more or less the pursuit of purpose. It's almost like a quick.
sure.
I would say maybe it's kind of similar to like when you travel. Let's say you go to France. Everybody's like, oh, I gotta go to Paris and see the Eiffel Tower. That's kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not
I
into
mean,
that
yeah, you
stuff.
do, but
Yeah,
but
I'm
also
personally, I'm like, I don't care. It's enough of that, and
sure.
I like to go off the beaten path. I want to find the little
Yeah.
town that nobody knows about that's got the grandma making those crazy croissants or something, and that's where I'm after, But again, everybody's got a different. But yeah,
Yeah,
but checking the boxes and following the path.
I
Yeah.
think it's important to either do that stuff or understand
Hmm.
it and
Sure.
then branch off. And I think that's the same thing about the photography rules is like understand why people say this is a rule,
Hmm. Employ it, use
and then
it.
you have a better
Yeah.
and yeah, then you have a better understanding of how you can use it, but also how to not use it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I don't think that just like I'm going to break the rules because someone said to break the rules. I don't think that has any utility either.
Hmm.
Um,
So intention is the key.
yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, totally. That makes sense.
I mean, if you're taking a photo of half of someone's face, why this half?
Hmm.
Why not the whole thing?
Hmm.
What's what about the other half? Something. I mean, I'm just making that up, but
No, no, no. You're being very specific. So we're talking about faces. Not just kidding. Yeah, no, totally. That makes sense. And yeah, intention is the key. I think a lot of times intention. Okay, so if we break down photography binary wise, so it's like being present in the moment. Let's talk about your approach and similar to my approach, which is being present in the moment, capturing the essence of an experience, being completely aware, then allowing it to happen, but having intention with that a moment. And when all those things come together, the viewer goes, "Oh, what the shit? This is crazy." They're feeling that energy of intention,
hmm
purpose, moment, and the ritual of it all connected, which I think is potentially the summation of it all. And what eventually, because like I think you probably, I don't know if you feel this way, but photography, just like art, is very subjective, and it's hard to get people to appreciate and understand that photography has value, say, along with like a painting or something, just because people devalue these things or they don't understand the breadth of things.
sure.
But again, that's not their job to the
No,
viewer.
and
Yeah.
I don't think that I can't I can't tell someone that like my photo is important and you must understand it and enjoy it because if it doesn't resonate with them, that's their
Prerogative. Yeah.
yeah, their ability to say, nah, this is dumb. I don't like it. This doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can't the same way I can't really say that anyone else's photography is dumb either. If they're into what they're doing and they are enjoying it, then that's awesome. I can't I can't knock anyone else's method or results.
Yeah. How could you?
I could I could say that if you're just trying to copy someone else and there's no you in it, then maybe that's not so great. But that might be how someone goes about learning what their own thing
Yeah. Well,
is
all artists
is trying
steal.
something else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And well, steal is a harsh word, and it's a
sure.
I think borrow is another word that's less harsh, but we
Yeah,
all are inspired or motivated. But yeah, then there's ethics. If you're using that and you're copying, and then you're using it for monetary gain, that's a problem, and so on and so forth. But
I mean,
yeah.
hopefully, I'd say if or when you're borrowing something, hopefully you're using it as a building block to step higher on
Yeah.
and do something
Well, evolving it.
higher or yeah,
Yeah. You would hope so. Yeah. But yeah, there's obviously that line gets crossed, and it's so circumstantial
sure.
that it's hard to track and really say
Yeah,
this is wrong, because I agree. I don't think it's fair of anybody to say this art is not good, even though I have strong opinions about art and other people's
yeah.
art.
Well, I mean, my strong opinion would be I don't enjoy this,
Yeah. Yeah. Or it's not
but
for
someone
me.
else might.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the line I use, is it's just not for me.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm not into like pop music and stuff. So, but I don't have to listen to it. So
sure.
it just does nothing for my soul. So, but yeah, that makes sense then. Dude, it's been fantastic talking with you. I'm
Same.
really
I re-
stoked you finally made time for this. I've been bugging you for a long time. So
I know. Yeah.
and I was
Well,
I was like, does he not like me? What's going on here? But no, I figured you're just
no,
busy.
it's just I'm away and I forget.
Yeah.
And so
I figured as
I
much.
wanted to make sure we could get it done now because I'm on the road for at least a month pretty much. So
Wonderful.
trying to do this in my car I thought would maybe not be such a great idea, but
Yeah. Yeah. You got to get you a publicist, man, and start working for the
yeah.
military. Make some military bucks.
Yeah, we'll
Shoot some
see.
epic stuff. Yeah, it's a matter of time. I'm hoping that that happens for you. I think that would be a match made in heaven. And then just you get you get easy access to some crazy stuff, and then we're really going to see some stuff there. That's going to be fantastic. So, and I also look forward to the day I get to meet you, and then even more importantly, if it would be
Sure.
amazing to be able to shoot with you, that'd be
Yeah,
fantastic. So,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. But thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate you
No
taking the
problem.
time, and thanks for inspiring me, everybody else as well, and for your advice and tips on everything. They're so sound and they're wonderful, and yeah, I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it too.
Yeah, man. You have a good one and safe travels, and
Thank you.
keep killing it.
Thanks. You too, man.